You know, I just really love computers.
Oh!
And news about computers. Getting kicked out of a store is super on brand for a punk, so it kind of makes sense that Sony has removed Cyberpunk 2077 from the PlayStation Store. Players can thank the game's pervasive bugs and shockingly poor performance on the PlayStation 4 for the removal, along with Sony's strict refund policy. Players had trouble getting refunds, see, because Sony couldn't seem to comprehend the fact that the game had passed store approval, but was getting so many complaints, like, well, it just didn't make sense. Microsoft is leaving the game up on the Xbox Store for now, and CD Projekt Red has said that they'll give players refunds directly if they have trouble getting them elsewhere. But the game's removal from the PS Store caps off a bad week for CD Projekt Red, as the most anticipated game of the decade turned out to be one of the worst launches of the decade. If you're a PlayStation 4 player who still wants to play something Cyberpunk related, there is good news though. You can check out the new Cyberpunk themed items in Death Stranding, which is paid.
I play that so many hours a week.
Awesome. The Cyberpunk Death Stranding thing is only on PC, LOL, so that's funny, I guess. Microsoft is reportedly working on developing its own custom-designed ARM processors for use in the company's cloud servers and possibly future Surface devices. While the Surface Pro X, which initially released last year, is powered by the Microsoft SQ2 processor, I like to call it the SQ2 for short, it actually isn't designed by Microsoft at all. They worked with Qualcomm to modify that company's existing laptop SoC, the Snapdragon 8CX. So an ARM processor designed fully in-house could help Microsoft compete with Apple Silicon-powered ARM MacBooks. Now, Bloomberg sources say Microsoft's ARM chip is being developed in the company's Azure department, not in the Surface division, so don't get your hopes up yet if you're an ARM fanatic like me. I love ARMs. They're great. I love to bear them. And this week, US cybersecurity officials revealed that multiple US government departments and prominent corporations were hit by an extremely sophisticated and dangerous cyber attack. The hackers were able to exploit a backdoor in IT software called Orion, made by Texas-based SolarWinds, to breach the networks of Microsoft, the Energy and Commerce Department, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the security firm FireEye, and more. Microsoft was able to partially mitigate the security hole used by the hackers, but it's believed that they might have had access to these networks since March.
They're in the walls.
Federal representatives haven't said who they think is responsible for the hack, but some have pointed the finger at Cozy Bear, the group believed to be sponsored by the Russian government. Don't be fooled, that bear isn't cozy. At all.
Spiky, very uncomfortable.
Now it's time for the Bat Quicks, brought to you by the Seasonic Prime Ultra Titanium PC Power Supply. It's the creme de la creme of power supplies with ultra high efficiency and an 80+ titanium rating. It's also fully modular and comes with a little testing doodad so you can turn it on without plugging it into your motherboard. That's super handy if you're trying to set up a custom water cooling loop. And it has a quiet fluid dynamic bearing fan with hybrid fan control to keep the noise down. So go check it out. It's backed by a 12-year warranty. It could live longer than you. Buy it at the link below. Now it's time for the, you know what? They're called the jeans spots today. I don't even care. Google has been served with its second antitrust lawsuit of the week and its third of the year. This one comes from a coalition of 38 states and accuses the tech giant of favoring its own products in search results. Google responded with a blog post that said, "We've sold so few Pixel phones, we couldn't possibly be favoring our own devices. I mean, we've basically given up on these things at this point. We don't even put flagship processors in them anymore." Just kidding, that's not what they said. Google responded with a blog post that said that redesigning Google search would hurt the internet. And you don't want to hurt the internet, do you? Facebook is doubling down on its attacks against Apple, who plans an update for iOS 14 that would allow users to block apps from tracking them for advertising. Apple has now responded, saying that Facebook can still track users, just like it did before, if the users let them do it. And Facebook, if you think that's bad, you might be the bad one. The US government apparently thinks Chinese companies are bad in general, so they've added dozens of them to the country's entity list, which is essentially a blacklist for companies that aren't allowed to do business with the US. Among the new additions are drone company DJI and SMIC, one of China's biggest chip makers. I've never tasted Chinese chips. Do they taste red? And Epic Games has announced Spotify is now available on the Epic Games Store, which sort of makes sense, since the two companies are united in their hate for the Apple tax. It's also noteworthy though because it's the first non-game listing on the Epic Games Store. Maybe Epic is gearing up to make the case that they have a robust app store that can compete with Apple's. Look, we have Spotify! And finally, a joint team of scientists has successfully teleported qubits across approximately 27 miles of fiber optic cable. Of course, this isn't like actual teleportation. It involves transmitting information using entangled photons that mirror each other's states despite being separated across vast distances. So it's like barely cool at all.
Yeah, let me know when you teleport for real.
Yeah, but it totally is cool. Like, trust us. Yeah. And this episode is also cool because it doesn't overstay its welcome. See that? It's over. Come back on Monday for more tech news just like this, but completely different because Monday is going to be a new day.